Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Do Drugs. I am your host, Alia Janine, and today I have one of my very favorite people that we've just met kind of recently, almost a year, I want to say. We have
Wow,
known
yeah.
each other, although we have technically never met in person.
This close.
So
This
close.
close.
The pandemic has kept us away from meeting. Everybody, welcome Ryan Shaner.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, three people. No, I'm just
Hello.
kidding.
Yeah.
I'll have more than three people
Hey, it's
listening.
all right. It's all right.
So Ryan, you live in Philadelphia. How is Philly these days?
I mean, bleak. It's
Yeah.
I like it for like so many reasons, but like I think every person who's lived in Philadelphia for an extended period of time,
Yeah.
you have this it's not just a love hate. It's a love despise thing with the city. It's but you also it's kind of like I don't know, having a brother that you never got along with ever,
Yeah.
but like if someone ever picks on him, you're like, "You fucking piece of shit, I'll fucking kill you. You
Yeah.
stay away from him." But it's
Yeah.
like, no, if anybody's gonna kill him, it's gonna be me. It's kind of like Philadelphia is Lenny, and we're all George. We all are waiting to put Philadelphia down by the river because we all love it so much, but we know nobody else should be around it at any time. It's very weird.
It's a toxic relationship.
Yes, very much so. And
Very.
everyone and the crazy thing about any toxic relationship
Hmm.
is everyone has the same advice. They're like, just get out of it.
Yeah.
Just go. And
Yeah.
then you, like an abuse victim, is like, it's not that easy. I can't go. I know I can't.
I
I
just.
can't just get up and leave. Like, you really do put that in your head. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah. It is very. I know I was that way with Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was very similar kind of toxic relationship with that city, and I ended up leaving, and I can never go back to it now.
Yeah,
Like to
that
visit, it's fine, but yeah, to live, no.
I think that's my biggest fear too, is like someone's like, "Hey man, you should go see the world." I'm like, "You know what the crazy thing about that is? If I were to ever go like abroad
Hmm.
and end up in like Western Europe and just be blown away with how it is over there,
Yeah,
there would probably be a very big percentage of me that would be like, "You know what? You just stay.
yeah.
You just stay and be a bum. Like you'll work it out. You'll figure it out. Like just use the money you have now
Hmm.
to like fart around, but like apply for jobs, and hopefully someone will be like, "Oh, American, okay, cool, whatever." And then you just work there and be like, "Hey, can I sleep in your basement for a little bit until I get on my feet?" And just yeah, I've always thought about that. But I also know like if I leave Philadelphia and people are like, "Hey, you gonna come back to live?" I'm like, I don't know if I would. I
No,
don't
you're
know if
like,
I would.
oh, so you're afraid that you may leave and never come back. Like
Yeah,
you're.
and that's a thing is like when I told my parents that I was like going to move to Philadelphia, they were like, "Oh, he's going to a different country." And then when I said like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about maybe like Philadelphia or even possibly going out west." If Philadelphia to them is a different country, California is a different planet. They wouldn't even like get it. They wouldn't wrap their mind around it. They'd be like, "Why would you go to Mars? I don't understand. There's nothing out there." And trying to even get them to wrap their mind around Philadelphia was like a little tough. And I mean, my mom, I
Where are
love her
you
to death.
from? Where are you from?
Outside of so where and that's the thing too, is like everyone's like, that doesn't make any sense. So I grew up outside of Valley Forge, which is
Okay.
like 45 minutes away from
Okay.
Philadelphia.
It's
So
nothing.
Philadelphia isn't let's put it this way. Where I grew up, Philadelphia was the big city. New York
Hmm.
was like, hey, yeah, New York. We know what that is, but we don't
Yeah.
care. But like I remember when I said I was moving to Philadelphia, and my mom asked where I was going. I said South Philadelphia, and she goes, "Oh, so like the Franklin Institute, right?" And I was like, "No, actually, more south." And she's like, "Oh, okay. So like the art museum." My mom, for a long time, I'm pretty sure, thought Philadelphia was just Broad Street, just
That.
City Hall and like a couple of buildings, and like that was it. Like it's just all one big little thing. And then
Yeah.
when they kept driving down here to see me, like, "Oh, I didn't know there were that many houses around." I'm like, "Yeah, it's
It's a big city. So
yeah, no,
they just have that small town kind of
yes,
mentality where it's like,
yeah."
this is where I was born and raised. This is where I'm gonna
Oh,
raise my children. This is where
it's
I'm going to die.
a very born here, gonna die here type of fucking town.
Which is so like I get that because it took me a while to leave Wisconsin. I'm like, I've always wanted to live other places and I never thought about actually doing it until I'm like, when my uncle, I think because my uncle had moved to Florida, I'm like, wait, he moved out of state. I'm
Yeah,
like, I can too. So I went and moved to
yeah.
Florida. Although I only lasted in Florida 8 months. It took me 30 years to leave Wisconsin, 8 months to leave Florida.
That's sounds pretty much par for the course. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't know anybody who like goes from the north like, you know where I need to live? Florida. I need to
Florida.
live there. Everyone just goes there like, hey, I went there. It's almost like Florida is America's Amsterdam. Like people are like, yeah, I went there. It was I don't even know what happened out there, but it was crazy.
People go to Florida to either die or to hide from something.
Yeah, it's that's I mean, it's a crime state. It's like I don't
There was yeah, there lots of cocaine, which I'm a fan of. It's one of my favorites. But there was also like they had a lot of like that bath salt stuff
oh
or
yeah,
whatever, or
man.
like meth. And I never tried bath salts. I like them in my bath. Like that's where bath salts need to
Yeah,
go. Is
the
in
appropriate place for bath
the
salts.
appropriate place for bath salts and meth or whatever. But yeah, I was like, oh, you eat people's faces off with
Yeah, I
that?
found like with the bath salt thing, any drug that
Hmm.
isn't like, the standard drug. But when
Yeah.
it comes down to like bath salts, when someone's like, "Oh man, they're smoking bath salts or huffing bath salts," I was like, how did they figure out how to do that? Because
Yeah.
like that's like a thing where like they're even like if I'm at a grocery store and I see a weird fruit, I'm like, what fucking idiot saw that and was like, you know what, we could eat that. We could totally eat that.
Let's chop it up. Let's see
Let's
what's
chop it up
inside.
and see.
Yeah.
It's like I think when it comes down to like things that aren't supposed to be drugs and then they become drugs, all it took was one. It's got to be desperation where someone's like, I don't have my one drug. Fuck it. I'm smoking
Boredom.
something.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
absolutely.
do that right now. And it's then you become the king
A
of
bath
bath
salt.
salts. Like that's what I mean. It's like then you are holding on to this, like, I'm not gonna tell anybody about this. It's amazing that I found this. And I was in that position once when I was a kid,
Hmm.
like a fucking idiot. I spent this is the dumbest. I'm such a fucking idiot. When I was in high school, me and my buddy Ben, who like he's dead. He overdosed on heroin. When
Oh.
we were in high school, Ben and he came up to me after I was like, dude, I got an idea where we are gonna be fucking rich. And let me tell you something. This is gonna change the game, dude. We're gonna be like fucking kingpins. I'm like, what are you talking about? And this is back when you just believed whatever the fuck you read on the internet. No matter what it was, you're just like,
Yeah.
why else would they put it on the
On the
internet?
internet. Yeah, it's legal. Like, right? Everything is legal and true on the internet.
Why would they put this on? So
Mhm.
Ben apparently was dicking around some stupid website and he came across somebody who informed him that if you cut out the hearts of Vidalia onions and then bake them and then smoke it, you will hallucinate. Ben informs me of this and he's like, dude, and the crazy thing is, it's perfectly fucking legal. But if
Illegal.
we just market it as something else, like we can't tell anybody it's onions because if they find out it's onions, they'll just buy their own onions and like, we just got to
Yeah,
like
we
say
can't
it's
have
something
a
else.
bunch of people buying their own
Exactly. And
onions.
then we get nothing. Then we get nothing. So like, I was like, oh man, and when you hear somebody very confidently tell you that this will get you fucked up, you believe it too because you're fucking in high school and dumb.
And it's your friend and you're
Yeah,
like and he found it on the internet.
on the he's like, "Dude, the website." I was like, "Website, you say?" It might as well have been, like, fucking in
Mhm.
a fucking encyclopedia. I was like, "Oh my lord." So, like fucking ass wipes, Ben
Children
and
who
I
are experimenting, I would prefer.
yeah, well, we idiots, scrounged together $50,
Oh my god.
went to a grocery store, went to Giant, and bought $50 worth of Vidalia onions. Do you know how many Vidalia onions that is? It's so many.
It's
It's
a
to a
lot of
point where,
onions.
like, we were, like, putting them and, like, weighing them out, and then we actually had to ask one of the clerks, like, "Got any more in the back?" It was almost like they were like, "What?" And one thing I found out is, like, if you're a teenager anywhere, but more
Mhm.
specifically in a like, a shitty town,
Yeah.
you can't buy a lot of anything because it's
No.
immediately suspicious. You're like, "Why do you want that? Why do you
That's a
want so many of those?"
yeah, that's a prank happening.
So everyone was like, "What's this about?" And we literally had to be like, "Oh, science experiment," and like we're testing this, or like just making shit up. Have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. We're just like very confident, like, "Oh yes, we're gonna get like a grade for the." It's like it's gonna be the final, so we
Yeah,
got to do this.
it's very important.
We checked them all out, and even the lady like weighing all the plastic bag, like we had to leave with a box, like a
Onions.
big fucking box. So then we got back to Ben's house, and again, like, his mom came in, she's like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, just so suspicious. Like, what I and we're already high. On the way there, we were, like, smoking a joint in the car, like, "This is gonna be fucking we're, like, the best, dude." Like, wasted. We're fucking wasted, cutting up onions, high as shit, in his kitchen and just throwing all of it away just to get that little
Little
middle
heart.
part.
Mhm.
And we're baking them. His house reeks like shit because we don't know how to bake. We don't know how long you're supposed to bake it.
Or the temperature.
At what temperature? We have no idea. It just said bake. So we don't fucking know.
Just bacon, onion heart.
Bacon onion hearts, and then like we got like maybe like 20 of them, and we're saving the others. And like we are like, all right, we're gonna trip. We can't do it here. We gotta do it like in a safe spot. Let's go down by the river in the woods and
Mhm.
like smoke this. And then we grabbed a bong and went to and we're like chuckling to ourselves, like, we are gonna be rich.
We're gonna be so high.
Oh yeah, we were like, we were gonna go to the fucking moon, dude. It's gonna be amazing. But we were so scared because we didn't know how we'd react to it. So we just did it one at a time and to like monitor the other one. Like that's where we were.
Yeah. I mean, that's smart. At least you guys were being,
Yeah,
responsible.
responsible. Like fucking idiots. And like we went to the woods and like I remember packing up the bowl with the onion hearts, like, here we all right, ready? You ready, dude? And here we go. And like you take a huge hit, you exhale, and then you're like doing that thing where you're convincing yourself that you
That
might be tripping.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're like,
Talking yourself into it. Am I seeing something? I don't
whoa,
know. Are you
whoa,
feeling something?
wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute,
The
wait a minute.
trail.
Yeah,
Rusty
you're like,
trail.
that's exactly what I was doing. I
Do I
honestly
see
was like,
him?
no, no.
Uh,
So then I did it again and I was like, maybe it'll like take some time. And then Ben's like, let me try. So like at this point in time, we were going back and forth. This is and
How many onion hearts are you at now?
oh, I mean, we had smoked at least five. And we're just going at it. And then like we stopped and then we had to like have that sobering
Con
realization that
the
we were fucking
conversation.
just the dumbest kids on the planet. Just the
Wait.
dumbest children ever. And
Wasted
again,
$50.
oh yeah, just like standing there in the woods holding a bong with a baggie full of onion hearts, just like and I remember looking at Ben like, I think we're done. And Ben was like so hell bent on it because it was his
Oh,
idea. He's like, no, man,
yeah.
no, man, maybe we needed to bake them longer, or maybe it's not Vidalia, maybe it's sweet. I don't know, maybe it's like white onions, maybe white onions, white cocaine powder. That makes sense, dude. White onions, white. But
That sounds
we
very logical for a teenage boy,
it
by
was
the
so
way.
stupid. But then again, also, when you're a teenager, you can't go home reeking of anything because that
Yeah,
immediately is also like
a
it doesn't
red
matter what
flag.
it is. If you go
Yeah,
home reeking of cologne, your mom's like, "What were you doing?" Like it's just like, "What was that?"
yeah. Where did you steal that from?
Yeah, or why are you using so much of it? So like, I remember walking in, I smelled like shit, and
Oh,
my mom was like in the kitchen. She's like, "What is that on you?" I was like, I just like shook my head. She's like, what is that? I was like, it's onion. She's like, why do you smell like onions? And I looked at her honestly, I was like, it's the stupidest thing in the world. And I just want to let you know I don't want to talk about it. And she was like, and she literally was like, Okay. Like whatever lesson I had learned, it was enough for me to be like, you know what? I can't even muster an excuse.
Like
And
the look on your face enough.
I don't want to do it. But yeah, I think that's like a thing when people come down to like bath salts. It's like if someone was like, dude, you got to try bath salts. I wouldn't do that in my 20s or 30s, but like I would definitely do that in my teens. Like the amount of
Oh,
drugs,
yeah. So many drugs when I was a teenager.
so many. It's
And
like,
like an obnoxious amount
oh
of
yeah,
drugs on top of it. Like, let's see how much we can do.
oh yeah. And
Let's see how long we can survive off of 15 tabs of acid.
that's kind of like the first time I ever dropped acid was more acid than I think a first timer should do.
How
But I
much
was,
acid did
oh, I
you
did
take your
three
first
tabs
time?
of it was the first time.
Yeah, that's a lot for your
And
first
I
time.
was like, this is what I want. And I was like, let's go. Like, I honestly was, because you're a fucking dumb shithead.
And
And
it's just a little piece of paper. This
eh,
little piece of paper can't do nothing. What?
whatever. And it was, I mean, the only thing I can say about acid is that, like, my brain didn't shut off. Like, there were parts of me, like, I wanted to go to sleep and I was so
Yeah.
mentally exhausted and it just wasn't happening. And then I would get mad because other people would be having better trips than me. I'm like, this is fucking horse shit. But yeah, I mean, just trying to do more drugs than you should. And then even having like being snooty. Like I remember I was like, I'm above acid and shrooms. I don't do that anymore. But like a fucking idiot, I remember like again when you're like, who would drink that to get to an extra level of fucking being fucked up? And
Kids.
again, yeah, kids. And the craziest thing I think I've ever ingested. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like it wasn't even a drug.
Yeah,
It
okay,
was
so, I mean, well, besides the onions, because that's pretty
Yeah, that's
fucked
just
up.
stupid. That's just beyond dumb. But the most gnarly thing I've ever ingested to get fucked up was for like a month. Me and my friend Sean and a couple of my other high school friends, we were drinking what we thought was grain alcohol,
Ooh.
and it wasn't. It was actually a byproduct of kerosene. And that is just straight poison. It's
Yeah,
not alcohol. It's legitimate poison.
yeah.
And this again goes back to like the determination of a high schooler to
Mhm.
get fucked up exceeds any other determination in the
Yep,
world.
yep.
And yeah, there were so many red flags that should have stopped us, but we were like, no, mm-mm.
The
Like,
smell, the taste.
oh man, the smell was ridiculous. That was the first, like, well, actually, the first red flag was we broke into an abandoned factory to find it. And when we did, there was a glass jug at
Mhm.
the end of a conveyor belt with a black hose in it, and it said alternate fuel source. Now, that should have stopped us right away. But then we were also thinking, like, actually, grain alcohol is so combustible. Of course, they used it in cars. I mean, that's what bootleggers did. We think. I don't know. I don't. So
The
that
teenage
should have,
logic again.
again, dumb logic. We pulled the hose out, and I remember the cork and the hose that came out with it. It was just like almost out of like a fucking cartoon. You could almost see the smell coming out. We were like,
Oh.
oh, that's bad. But we were also like, but that's how you know it's good. Like, we
Yeah.
were like, that's how you know.
Yeah.
That smell, that means it's working, actually.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
coming. You gotta let that breathe a little bit like a fine wine. It'll get you there. And
A good
then
Merlot.
we were divvying it up in Gatorade bottles and like we were moving them around and we could see like rings on the floor where we were moving. We're like, oh, and it was eating through the plastic.
Of
It was
course.
just, and we were like, but again, we were like, that's how you know it's genuine. Like
Yeah.
it's uncut, it's pure, just total moonshine. Like there's no way it's not. And then I was with four other guys. We all like got our share. Like this is ours. Like we never tell anybody about this because if everyone knows where it is,
Yeah.
we're gonna fuck up everything. So then me and my buddy Sean went back to his house and we were in his room with this like glass jar we also found in the fact, also super gross. We just like cleaned out a jar. We're like, this will be good. We're fucking so dumb. So then I remember knowing, I was like, I know from movies and TV that like moonshine's like a thimble shot. That's all you need to get you there. It's just a little guy. So I remember we filled up like a small part of a shot glass. And as soon as I put it up to my mouth,
Oh
my
god.
whole face was on fire. Like I just remember burning and coughing. And that should have been enough to be like, no, don't,
Do it.
don't drink this. Stop now. Nope.
No.
Not at all. And I remember telling Sean, I was like, "We can't drink this straight. Obviously, we gotta mix this stuff,
Yeah, no, you gotta mix
clearly."
it,
And
obviously.
Sean's like, "I got you." He went downstairs, came back up with Tropicana Twister, blue raspberry Tropicana Twister.
Oh, that stuff was so good.
And he filled a pint glass like a quarter of the way. Now we're jumping the shark because we just know we need to mix it. He filled a pint glass a quarter of the way with this shit, and then he poured the Tropicana Twister in it, and this should have been end
Yeah.
because he poured it in, and that shit went right up and floated on top of the Tropicana Twister, and we were just looking at it like, "Hmm," and he's like, "Well,
Like, there's
what?"
no mixing it, it's
Oh, no,
not
we were just like, "Ah," he's like, "You know what we gotta do? We gotta stir it, and while it's stirring around, we'll drink." I was like, "That's the smartest idea. That's how we gotta do it." We found all it kept throwing us curveballs, but we were
Yeah,
never gonna give up,
determined.
and, man, man, oh man, that was no, because you did hallucinate, but it wasn't like scary things. It was just like constantly thinking you had something on you. You would convulse and you would violently throw up, but you
Yeah.
were wasted. I mean, like you would try and walk and you couldn't. And like I remember we would go to parties and people would be like, "Hey, you drink?" I'm like, "Yeah, you want to kick it up a little bit, man?
Oh
You
my
see what we got
god.
here? This is moonshine." People are like, "Whoa, what?" And then like we would give it to other people. And then years later, I was at work and I was explaining the same story because someone was asking about like booze and like moonshine and some fucking new shit they put out like at a
Yeah.
liquor store. I was like, "Yeah, I think I drank moonshine before, like legitimate moonshine." And I was explaining it, and this one guy is looking at me. He's like, "Wait. Tell me again where you got this." And I said it again. He's like,
Mhm.
"Whoa, wait, hold on, Ryan. Where did you get this?" And I explained where I broke in. He's like, "I worked there." I was like, "No." He's like, "No. He's like, "That distillery, when we shut down, we were required to like get all the alcohol." "What did you drink again?" He goes, "Ryan, no." He's like, "That was a byproduct of care. How are you alive?" He's like, "The fact that you aren't stuttering or
Yeah.
fucked up." He's like, "How many other people drank this?" I was like, about like 9. He's like, "Are they dead?" I was like, "Actually, 2 are. 2 guys are." But I don't think it had anything to do with the moonshine. I think it just they were just stupid guys. But that was like, I mean, even outside of high school, like I remember I was in, and this is again like just a moment to be like, how gnarly can I be
Yeah.
with drinking? Because that was like that was the
In high
drug
school,
of
that
choice.
was that the
What?
first thing you ever did was drink?
Yeah. The first thing I ever did, the first beer I remember the first full beer I ever had.
How
Like a
old were
full
you?
I was 9.
Okay.
The first full can of beer I ever drank,
Mhm.
I had stolen, or not stolen, but like I had snuck it out of a cooler at like a party.
Okay.
And keep in mind I wasn't with like other kids. I was like, "Oh shit."
By yourself?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, I got this cool yellow soda. I don't know what this is. I see everyone drinking it and I know it's
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
Like I know what it is, but I'm like, I don't know what
What
bud."
is
Yeah, I'm just like, "Yeah, fuck it." So I crack it and I'm like drinking it, but I also remember thinking, and also knowing like what I'm doing is bad and I can't let anybody see me doing this,
Yeah.
and I got to get rid of this as fast as I possibly can. And I was like taking huge pulls,
What did you
and
think of the taste of it at the
I thought
time?
it tasted like shit.
Yeah,
I
right.
thought it was really bad, but that was also again like dumb logic where I'm like, no one's drinking this for the taste.
Yeah.
Everyone's drinking this for the fucking end game. Like there's
That's
got to be
actually very smart logic because no one drinks beer for the taste.
I was just like, there's got to be an end game to this. Like I see
Mhm.
everyone having a good time. Like why am I not? Why am I not having a good time? But yeah, I remember I was like slamming it, and like at one point in time, after oh, not only did I throw the can, I like crushed it and then dug a small hole and put a rock over top because I didn't want anyone to
Anyone to
know.
find out.
And that right there is the beginning of a problem. Like hiding your drinking has always
At
been
9 years
at
old,
9.
yeah. Started out real young with you, huh?
I didn't want anybody to know I was drinking beer. I knew I was gonna get in trouble, and I fucking remember I ran back. It was at like a family reunion. We were at like
Mhm.
a big open park, and I remember running back to try to get to a point where like, oh, he was just playing in that field by himself. He wasn't anywhere where we couldn't see him. And I
Yeah.
remember running back, and I like burped, but I burped foam and beer like all out, like I threw up.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember my cousin saw it, like, "Hey, are you all right? What's going on?" I'm like, "Ew." I was like, "Get away from me. I am perfectly fine. It's just I ate a hot dog weird or something, like, stay away." And that was, yeah, I remember that was the first time I ever drank a beer, and then it was like, I don't know, I didn't start getting into liquor until I was, like, 13. 13 was, like,
13.
the first
Did
time
you continue to drink since you were 9, like sneak alcohol?
I would I remember being like beers were one thing, like, I would get them, but then, like, that's when you find out, like, you gotta keep beer cold. Like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, you don't know that at early age. You're like, just
Mhm.
it's in a cooler, but you're like, "Hey, I can take this freezing cold beer out of somebody and keep it under my bed for 6 days and then drink it." Like, why would it go bad? It's in a
Yeah.
can. What are you talking about? It was one of those things too. Oh, one time again, this is you learn.
You live and you learn.
I opened a bottle of like I can't remember if it was like High Life or something else. I can't remember what it was, but I opened the bottle and drank half of it, and then
Mhm.
put the like slammed the cap back on, thinking that would be
To
enough.
help it?
And I put it behind my bed, and like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks went by. Well, not thinking about
Oh.
anything, but I remember like it was I went up to my room and it was like dark, but I knew the bottle was there. And I like remember like taking the cap off, I was like, hell yeah. And I was like,
Oh.
like just spit out. And I turned there was mold in it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no. And I was like, learning the tricks.
Yes,
'Cause I'm
learning.
stupid and no one's telling me anything. Like I had understandably. But that was like, yeah, I didn't start really drinking liquor until I was like 13. And even then, I remember that wasn't like me sneaking booze.
Yeah.
That was me being around friends and family, and someone's like, "Hey, how old are you?
Yeah.
13?
Here
Get
you
this
go.
kid a shot. Let's see
Yeah.
what he's looking at." And like, honestly, to tell you the truth, and not to make me sound like a piece of shit, which I guess I'm not helping my situation anyway. I feel morally remiss that my nephew is now 17 years old.
Mhm.
I feel very bummed out that I have not given him his first shot of alcohol. Like, I feel super bummed
It's
that
like
I
a
wa
family kind of thing. Like you grew up just around I was the same way in Wisconsin, just grew up like drinking was very normal and like sneaking, giving a kid a sip of beer or
Of
whatever. It's
course,
part
of
of the
course.
culture. Grew up in bars and whatnot. So when other people hear about like a 13-year-old drinking hard liquor and then having a family member give it to him, like they're in shock. But like in certain areas, it's like that's actually really normal.
That's a pretty much par for the course. It's not even and
Yeah. Obviously
you don't
not with every family,
oh,
but
no,
with
no, no. And I'm not saying that every family that's not doing is like, "You guys are fucking up America. You need to
yeah.
get back on this fucking train of getting your kids boozed up at 12, because
Yeah.
if they're not." I just think that it wasn't and I don't know. A lot of people are like, "Ooh, that's weird, grooming someone for a road that they're never going to be able to get off of." And
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think that's not untrue, but I also know
Yeah.
that none of these people, no one who ever gave me beer or gave me booze,
Mhm.
no one was trying to fuck my life up. They were
Yeah.
just like, "Hey, you want
This is part of what we do. Yeah, it's
it's
an everyday
yeah."
thing.
I
Which
think that's just how it was. I mean, it wasn't like I don't think anybody had no one had bad intentions. No one
yeah.
had bad interests for me. They were just like, "Hey, what are you doing over there? You want a
Mhm.
cocktail, kid?" that's fun. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like,
And yet you're
whoa,
young and be like, "Yeah, have a drink, it's fun." And then,
yeah,
like, I remember the first time I got drunk, like, it made me sick and I didn't wanna drink
oh yeah,
again, and that was the point my parents gave me stuff. They're like, "Yeah, try it." Threw up. They're like I'm like, "I'm never doing that again." They're like, "Exactly."
yeah, no, and I understand the scared straight type of thing
Yeah.
too. So it's like, especially when the first time you do a shot of whiskey with like and I know my uncle will not remember it because this is like if I brought him like, remember you did that? He'd be like, I did not. I'm like, that's fine. If you don't remember giving me booze, that's
Yeah.
totally fine that you don't remember that. But I remember when I got it and like I did the shot, I just remember doing the stupid thing. Like I thought you were supposed to like hold it in your
In your
mouth, like because
mouth.
you're so stupid. Like you
And you think
just
that maybe the pain would go away or, like, cool
oh
down?
yeah, and keep in mind, I'm not drinking good whiskey. I'm
No.
drinking like fucking Bankers Club bullshit from a fire hall. This
Yeah.
is not like
Yeah.
the top shelf thing. I think it was almost intentional. Like, give this kid whiskey so he'll shut up and he'll never want it ever again. It's
Mhm.
like yeah, it's like when people make you smoke a whole pack of cigarettes to like, hey, you want to smoke? Try this whole pack and then tell me if you want it. And it's like, yeah, now I do actually.
Yeah, that's actually what happened to me and my stepmom, but it was an entire carton of Winston Light. And I didn't even smoke. She just saw me hold one of my friend's cigarettes while she went in the house. I was because it drove me nuts, like the smell, because both my
Yeah,
parents smoked. And then after that day, I was like, fuck you, I'm going to smoke. Because I didn't even know how to inhale. She basically taught me how to
yeah.
inhale. She taught me how to smoke. So,
I think that's I find that kind of crazy that like, smoking and drinking goes so hand in hand,
mhm.
but like smoking cigarettes was something I never even got into.
Really,
Like
at all? You never even tried? Have you
I
tried
no,
it?
oh yeah, of course I tried. I
Yeah.
wanted to look cool, Aaliyah.
I
What
mean,
are you
I look
talking
so
about?
cool still.
I needed to impress chicks, Aaliyah. I needed to be standing on my skateboard like, "What's up? I
What's
don't know what
up?
I'm doing." But, yeah, I remember the first cigarette I ever tried. I was in elementary school, and it was a fucking Newport, and
Yes.
I was just like, "Who does this? Is terrible." Like, it's the worst thing in the world, and
Yeah.
I remember, like, the only thing I think that was another thing too, is, like, my dad was very adamant about not smoking, not doing any other drugs,
He likes
just
other
not
drugs, just not
he
smoking.
was just like he would be like I remember he would smoke and he'd be like, "These things will ruin your life." He's like, "Don't get into it." However, there was one thing that like when you're in elementary school, and I
Mhm.
remember we had this huge assembly and it was like about not smoking and the dangers
Yeah.
of tobacco and blah 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 blah. Blah.
Yeah.
And then there was this part where they were like, "Oh, if you have a family member that smokes, you should let them know the dangers of secondhand smoke," which I had been
Yeah.
around my whole life. Like,
Entire
there's
life. Yeah.
not a time where I wasn't breathing in secondhand smoke.
Mhm.
And they were like, if they don't know about it, what you should do is tell them that you've been smoking. And then when they get all uppity, be like, yeah, because every time you smoke, I'm
I smoke.
smoking.
Yes, I remember that.
So,
Did you have McRuff
my
too?
well, what's that? Oh yeah, we had McGruff, and we also had this fucking dude called Trooper Ash, and I don't know what the fuck his deal was, but he would come to school like dressed like a fucking state trooper, but he would like go over the dangers of like drinking and driving,
Mhm.
and like also jump right into drugs that like I don't think any fucking elementary school guy, and like I understand start them early with education, but
Yeah.
no fourth graders like heroin. What? What
Right,
is
yeah.
that? Also, when you're describing heroin, that sounds awesome. Like,
It
it's just
sounds
like, what are you?
actually pretty kinda
That
cool.
sounds
Yeah.
pretty neat. That sounds
Yeah.
pretty neat. But yeah, I remember my brother and we were in the car, and I remember Kyle was like, "I'm gonna tell dad that I've been smoking." I was like, "I don't know if that's gonna fucking work, dude." I was like, I don't know."
Yeah.
So he was in the back seat, and he's like, "Dad," he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "Got something to tell you." My dad's like, "Oh yeah, what is it?" He's like, "I just want to let you know I've been smoking." And without like skipping a fucking beat, my dad pulled a soft pack out of his like flannel pocket and
Yes, the soft packs.
just did this with like one coming out. He's like, well, I guess, I mean, I can't stop you. Like, wait, now he said, I guess I can't really stop you.
Yeah.
Kyle at that point in time was like 8.
Oh my
Yes,
god.
you can.
That's literally your job.
You can totally stop
Stop him.
us.
Yeah.
That's without a doubt your job. Like, what are you talking about? It was, I don't know. That was,
Did your brother take the
oh
cigarette?
no, my brother just I was like, ah, that backfired. And I remember then explaining, like, yeah, dad, actually, it's like because of secondhand smoke. And he was like, second, I have the fucking windows down in the car.
Ah, yes, the windows down.
What are you
That was
talking
like
about?
a big
The
thing.
only the only thing my dad ever apologized with smoke. And like again, he didn't like I know he didn't want us to smoke.
Yeah.
And he was just like, they do cause cancer. And he was very aware. Because my grandmother, his mom, she died of lung cancer. So he
Yeah.
was very aware of this. But the
Mhm.
only time he ever really fucking apologized for doing anything with cigarettes, and he was like, so like, I am so sorry. We were driving and I was in the back seat and he flicked a cigarette out
And
of
it
the window
came
and it
out.
came right back in and hit me in the face. It didn't hurt me, but I was like, oh my God. I was like, what
Well,
the
yeah,
fuck?
because of the ash and
Sparks went
stuff.
everywhere and he pulled over. He's like, oh my God, are you all right? Because he thought he hit me in the eye. And he also knew if he had blinded one of his kids, my mom would cut his balls off like immediately. Like 90% of my dad's job when he was like taking care of us or like looking after us was like, don't die, don't
Yeah,
get injured. Don't
yeah.
die, don't get injured. As long as I keep you kids alive and out of the hospital, I'm fucking super dad right now. But he also like, I mean, his drinking, it never like, I don't know. My dad wasn't one of those guys that like you'd look at and be like, that's the type of drunk I want to be. Like my dad
Yeah.
was a fall down drunk.
Ooh,
He
did
was
he
a
drink a lot?
Oh, fuck. That guy, he could easily even up until he died. He I mean, until like he was like really, really bad.
Yeah.
But he would crush like cases of beer in a day, just without even thinking. It was the same with his smoking. It was like he would light cigarettes with the cigarette that's
With
already in
daddy.
his
Oh,
mouth
my
and just
grandpa would
like
do that.
go straight back into it. And
Mhm.
there was also never a time that I can remember. If I think back to like the prime of my dad's life, there was never a time where he wasn't holding a beer and smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And I mean ever. Like I remember there were times where he would have to like stop before we went into a place and finish the beer and then
Beer.
like go in because he knew he couldn't.
Yeah.
He also fashioned. I remember he had this fucking sweet work van that, like, again, was a death trap for children because it only had one seat up front and
Yeah.
nothing in the back. But he's like, "Hey, you just go back there and play. I'll fucking drive. It's just hold on to something."
Yeah.
But he had up front, he had fashioned a fucking cooler to be like where the middle console would be.
Mhm.
And this was like when you
A
see that,
normal thing. Yeah,
very, very like, and part
for
of me
him.
was like, "Yeah, I guess that's how all work fans are." Like, you just
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
crazy cooler full of beer in there
Yeah.
all the time. But
Or
it
that
was
drinking in general is just normal. You just
that's
do
just
it
how
at
it is.
work. Yeah, it's like water. You're drinking beer. Yeah.
Just how it, but like he would give you advice. He'd be like, "Don't do." It was very like, "Do as I say, not as I do." But also, if you do as I do, just don't say anything to the wrong people. It
Yeah.
was like, don't, you can do as I do, but don't let me see it,
Yeah.
and do it in the woods, and don't tell your mom because that's just how it is. And that was like how you went about things. And he would also put us in positions to where like we would go bowling a lot. Like that's I'm a pretty good bowler because I
Yeah. Well, it was a great place because you could bring your kids and
and
drinks.
drink. That's
Yeah.
exactly why I did it.
Spend a lot of time in bowling.
There was a fucking bar, and I remember we would go to Limerick Bowling Alley, and he would fucking just get a pitcher, and he'd be like, he would tell you, it's like, you gotta do this, just aim and you got it. But like, he would get up to go to the bathroom, and I would just go sit, and I'd pour myself a glass of beer, and I'd fucking drink it as fast as I could, and then put the
Yeah.
cup back down. And I don't think he would notice.
Yeah.
He'd just be like, I guess I did drink that other fucking glass of beer.
Mhm.
I didn't think about that. But he would crush like 3 or 4 pitchers of beer,
And that was the and drive
and
and
then it
stuff like
just
that. That was
get you back to where
so
you need to be.
yeah, that was very normal. My stepmother, but she liked Bacardi. She drank a lot of hard
Oh, yeah.
alcohol and driving and stuff like that. And there was one time when she almost got into an accident with us. And my baby brother at the time, he was an infant, and my dad got really upset. He was a truck driver at the time, and found out when he came home for the weekend. And what had happened, instead of like, hey, you need to slow down on drinking, they just taught me how to drive so I could drive her to and from, because she was in a bowling league and pool leagues and stuff like that. So they taught me how to drive, and it's like maybe a mile or something like it wasn't that
Yeah.
far for me to drive. But yeah, so I learned how to drive when I was like 10 years old, so I could drive my
Yeah,
stepmother.
I mean, that doesn't seem
But
that's
that was normal. I was just like, oh, apparently, like this is just what you do. Although with my mom, she barely drank. She liked pot and she liked
yeah.
cocaine when I was younger. I noticed, and mushrooms.
I will say this too. My dad did a fairly it wasn't until, like, I was in my, like, late teens,
Yeah,
but, like, my dad did a fairly good job, fairly good,
fairly
of,
good.
like, just exposing us to drinking and
Hmm.
smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
But, like, he would I think it's because, like, drinking and smoking cigarettes was so normalized. If I went home to my mom and she's like, "Was your dad drinking?" I was like, "Yeah, he's always drinking." She's like, "Yeah." "Was he smoking cigarettes?" I was like, "Yeah, he's always
Yeah.
smoking cigarettes."
Yeah.
But if I was like, "Yeah, he also bent down on top of a
I'm on the
mirror
and
and
like
then
white powder.
snorted something, and I don't know what." She'd be like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
So, like, he did a good job of keeping his, like, cocaine habit and his,
Did,
like,
did he have
and
a bad
oh,
cocaine habit? Do you know?
he was pretty bad. For a while, apparently, he was very bad, and that was, like, everyone knew it, but, like, he
Hmm.
did a good job of keeping that atmosphere away from my younger brother and I, but, like,
Yeah.
and I think that's also another thing is, like, if you don't see or know about a certain drug, you don't get there until, like, you're already, like, over it. Like, especially, like,
Hmm.
in high school, I never did cocaine. I didn't do cocaine until I was, like, out of, like, college because I was
Yeah.
like, "I just don't wanna do it."
Yeah. I was out
Like,
of high school too.
but everything else, they're like, "Do you wanna oh," like, just like, "Hey, do you know what salvia is? You should smoke that." I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll do that. I'll do that right
Hmm.
now." It's like, "Hey, you should take a bunch of shrooms and go walk around." I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do that." They're like, "Hey, you wanna try some cocaine?" I'm like, "What do you think I am?
Yeah.
Who do you think I am? You leave me alone. I'm gonna go huff this nitrous right out of the tube. You
Yeah.
can go to hell. You stay away from me with your weird party drug, you
Party drug.
fuck.
It's so expensive
What is
and
that?"
addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do what do you think? I'm gonna snort cocaine? You're out of your mind. But if you think I won't snort this Oxycontin right now, you have got another thing coming because I'm gonna
Because
do that.
that
I'm
comes
a
from a doctor.
yeah, that's these are pills, okay? Nobody died in Bolivia for this Oxycontin. You son of a bitch. You're perpetuating terrible drug trafficking, and I'm
Hmm.
not gonna be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was another thing too, is like I was in high school when 9/11 happened.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and I remember when that happened,
Hmm.
one of their like stern anti-drug campaigns was like, if you buy marijuana, you're actually funding terrorism because like the people who like deliver the marijuana are the same
Ah,
people who like traffic opium. It was
Afghani Kush,
yeah.
yo.
Well, that was also the other thing too. Is like I remember I was at my buddy's house, and like my buddy brought another friend brought over opium, and like we were like, "What's this?" Like, dude, he's
Hmm.
like, "It's crazy. Like this came from like Afghanistan." And we were like, "What?" He's like,
Terrorism.
"No, but we weren't." No, but then we were like, "But that's how you know it's good."
Right.
Because like not even the government is like, dude, opium maybe, but
Hmm.
Afghani opium, that's a whole new level of fucking crazy. And it
Yeah.
was again, opium was an enjoyable experience for me. It wasn't like I was never like, whoa, this is too much,
Yeah.
too little. But it was also weird that I would be like, people like, hey man, you want to do methadone? I'm like, absolutely not. you're insane, but I would crush Vicodin. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'd be
So you like more downers, kind
yeah,
of
I was
like.
like, I needed to like, if I was like too like, whoa, 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 I was like, because I was very aware of how I was when I was drunk. I
Mhm.
was a fucking maniac when I was drunk. In fact, people when I was in high school,
Mhm.
my best friends were like, we would drink every weekend, and we would get stupid and rowdy and
Yeah.
fucking just dumb.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Hey, Shaner, you want any fucking cocaine?" And my buddies would be like, "Don't give him that.
Yeah.
Don't give him that."
He doesn't need that.
It's almost like, look, if you give him that, it won't just be a bad time for him. It'll be a bad time for everybody here. And nobody wants that. We don't need the fucking cops coming. And like people are like,
Yeah.
actually, that's a pretty smart idea. It's like,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
But it was like then if people were like doing a bunch of drugs, and I'd be like, well, fuck, I'm just gonna drink to a point where like I'll just blow anybody out of the water. That was also another thing too, is like weird, stupid competitive drinking that
Oh, but so
no,
much. Nobody else. Why? Why did we do this? Why?
it wasn't even like, and I'm not even talking about like beer pong. I'm not talking about games. I'm talking about
No,
like
like slamming bottles.
slamming
Just
bottles for like
mhm,
the sake of being like, did you drink that whole bottle? You didn't.
mhm.
You're a pussy. I
You're
did.
a
I
fuck.
fucking
Yeah.
in my basement right now in the house
Mhm.
I live in the basement, I still have it. Is a empty bottle of Jägermeister. Back when Jägermeister was like super, everyone loved it.
Oh,
It was one of the. It's one of those gigantic
okay.
bottles that
Mhm.
like no one should have.
Yeah.
And I remember I bought it and I was like, I'm drinking this whole fucking thing tonight. And all of my friends were like, why? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
See if I could do it.
And then like a total like weird booze junkie, I went down to my friend's basement by myself, like an unfinished basement. Because like I didn't want to be, I was like, no one's gonna help me. Fuck everybody. And I just like started ripping shots of Jägermeister like an idiot.
Oh, by yourself at a party. So
At
you're
a
at a
party.
party by
Keep in mind,
yourself.
I just was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna go downstairs. Like, I don't
By
want anybody watching me get this drunk. And then out of nowhere, this fucking chick came down and she was like, what are you doing down here? I was like, I'm drinking. She's like, do you want some company? I was like, look, I don't know where this is gonna go. She's like, I don't care either. And I was like, that's the best attitude you could have with this. And then I don't remember a lot. Like I blacked out, and then
Obviously.
I woke up on the side of my friend's house in unmowed grass. Like I was just like pulling myself up, and their house, like no one was home. All of my shit was in his house, and the door was locked. So like I couldn't like
Just
get in.
they drag you outside
I don't know what
from.
happened, but like later that day, they showed up and they're like, "Where the fuck have you been?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You left at like 11 o'clock." That was another thing too. Like looking back, I was one of those guys that was like crush booze and be
Mhm.
wasted by like 11. And then everyone's like, "Where is he?" It's like, "He's already passed out, dude. He's
Yeah.
already out." And then I wake up at 3 like, "Yo, I'm ready to fucking and everyone else is passed out, and then you just go right back in a cycle of drinking by yourself
Yeah.
because no one is around. And then also you're a fucking idiot because you it's not even like somebody would suggest one thing, I'd be like, "I'll do that. I'll definitely do that." Like I remember again, I'm not this isn't a proud moment, and it's also a terrible thing to do.
Mhm.
I was at a party and I was at the time in art school,
Okay.
and somebody was bringing up like how like Van Gogh and other artists would like suck on the brush tips, like in like, but that would suck off like the oil and the turpentine.
Mhm.
And like it also added to like one, their terrible paranoid schizophrenia and their alcoholism.
Yeah.
And like,
But you could get hot, yeah, like
oh yeah,
caffeine.
oh yes, definitely. And someone's
Mhm.
like, you're not a real artist until you drink turpentine, dude.
Did you drink turpentine?
Oh, goddamn right I did.
You're a real artist then.
You
Congrats.
goddamn right. If you don't think for 1 second someone said that to me and I didn't go to my car, come back with a can of Terpenoid, put a shot glass down and bang that fucking thing, you are way wrong. And I did it, and I remember like it. That I think was also huge. Terribly, don't ever do that. And
Yeah.
all you know what a shot of terpenoid does?
What
Ruins
is
your
it?
whole night.
Insides, I'm sure,
Oh,
are
man, I
not.
remember I went up into the middle room where my buddy's house was, and they had a couch. I laid down on the couch face down because my stomach felt like someone was just, like,
Oh.
crushing it and then, like, letting it go for a second, and then, like, just as soon as you thought you were okay, you'd get up and be like, "Oh, no, 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 no."
Yeah.
And again, turpentine, straight poison.
Yeah.
Not any there's no
Like, you're supposed to huff that, right? Like
yeah.
a huffing thing,
Oh,
not
man.
drink it, if I remember correctly.
That was another thing too is, like, in my hometown
Yeah.
at
Was
an
huffing really a big thing?
see, it had to have been, and the reason
Yeah.
I say that is because, but it also was very you knew right away not to do it, and the reason
Yeah.
was when I was in elementary school, my sister was in high school, this kid
Mhm.
named Mike died of
From huffing?
huffing, and what
Oh.
happened was Mike, was huffing butane in his shed,
Ooh.
which
That's
I
a
didn't like,
struggle.
again, where do you come to, like you're like, "You know what I need to huff? Fucking butane."
Butane. My dad
Uh,
was big with glue. He loved, like, the
oh, that
old
was another
school
thing.
rubber glue. He loved to huff rubber
Yeah,
glue,
I knew a lot
according
of
to my
dudes.
uncle.
There was another guy I went to high school with, he didn't die, but, like, he almost did. He was huffing ether, and then, like, he was laying down,
Yeah.
and then he dropped the rag on his face,
Oh, yeah, no, that's
and it's
bad.
like
See,
a
we never got, like, good drugs like that. In high school, we would go to, like, Kmart, like you guys went and bought all those onions, we would go
yeah.
to Kmart and we would buy Glade aerosol cans, air
Ah,
freshener,
yeah.
and, like, vanilla and cinnamon. Wintertime, like, around Christmas was our favorite because they tasted, and then we put a washcloth off, and it's basically the same thing you would do with, like, whipped cream canisters and
Of course.
nitrous, but at the time, like, I didn't know that that was nitrous. I thought it was something else, even though it
Yeah.
literally says it on the can, but teenage, cognitive abilities. Yeah, and we would just sit like at my house or my friend Anna's house and just huff Glade all day.
I mean, that was the thing is that, like, I didn't even know huffing was a thing, and I don't think a lot of people even put it together, so when that kid died, what had
Yeah,
happened what it he didn't just die.
yeah. It was a bad.
He was huffing butane and then like, in a state of, like, just
Yeah.
being fucked up, he lit a cigarette and burned himself from the inside out and died a horrifically tragic death.
Oh my, that's, oh wow, yeah.
So, apparently, also, like, his parents so grief stricken, but, like, didn't know, like, they just didn't
Yeah.
know that that was a thing to, like, scare kids straight. They had an open casket, and, like,
Holy
my sister
shit.
said it was, like, one of the most horrific things she's ever seen in her life, and, like, when
Yeah.
you hear about that, you're like, "I don't want anything to do with that," and also
Yeah.
that drives through, like, "Hey, I'm s glad I stayed away from cigarettes."
Right. That's right, right. That's the thing. Huffing, I'll do. Smoking, obviously,
Smoking,
very
the
dangerous.
dangers of cigarettes go harder than you even know. It's not even about the nicotine. It's not about the carcinogens. It's the fact that you could be enjoying yourself with a nice fucking inhalant and all of a sudden you're on fire. No
Yeah.
thanks. No
No.
thanks.
Yeah, definitely don't mix your smoking with your inhalant.
Definitely. That's
Yes.
a one-way
Smoking
ticket.
goes great with so many things.
So many
Drinking,
things.
cocaine, heroin. I like to smoke a lot when I'm on acid and mushrooms. Although mushrooms, like I took mushrooms once because I read this study where it said that it can actually help you quit smoking
Yeah.
cigarettes. All I wanted to do was smoke more
Yeah.
cigarettes. I was like, God damn it.
I could only imagine.
Yeah,
And
I want to quit smoking, but I love it. It's like my brain is just wired that way.
it's it's all I mean, that's kind of how I feel with like drinking. And like
Yeah.
for a long
Do you
time,
drink every day?
I it's like like I don't think about it until like I think that was like one part of like when everything got shut down, like
Hmm.
when you weren't allowed to go anywhere and all the
Yeah.
bars were closed, like that was like good because I couldn't let's put it this way. I would consider myself, and I don't know, and it's probably some weird psychological thing. I would
Mhm.
consider myself like an apathetic alcoholic in
Okay.
the way that, like, if you were to tell me, Ryan, you can never drink ever again, I would be like, all right, that sucks, but sure. And I would
Mhm.
just be fine with it. But
Okay.
if you're like, Ryan, you can have all of that booze right over there
Mhm.
forever, I'd be like, all right, that's awesome. I'm going to drink all that booze right now.
Yeah.
It's a weird out of sight, out of mind type of thing.
Yeah.
However,
Mhm.
it's also like an avalanche.
When you
I
do just yeah,
when I
like
do drink, it is not I don't for a long time I thought I could practice moderation. And I thought that too,
yeah.
especially so it's no secret to anybody who ever listened to the podcast I have or anybody who really
Mhm.
knows me. When I was 20 years old, I got 2 DUIs in 1 week.
Jesus
Both were collisions, one was a house. And you would think, I almost killed one of my friends. He survived, and everything, we walked away without a scratch. But like
Mhm.
when you do that, and like a judge has to go over, he's like, two
In
in
one.
one, he's like, what kind of wild ass alcoholic are you? And you're like,
Mhm.
no, it's that I'm dumb. It's not
Yeah.
so much that I'm an alcoholic, it's just that I'm stupid. And like nobody wants to hear that because everything
Yeah.
on paper argues otherwise. So you have to go to
Mhm.
like outpatient, inpatient programs. I had to fucking do, AA for like a little bit. I went to jail. I then
Yeah.
had to fucking have that breathalyzer thing in your car. Now
Yeah.
you would think going through
Mhm.
all of that would stop somebody from being like, you know what I need to do? Give up the booze, man. I need to just give that up. Really, my brain was like, you know what I need to do, man? Figure out how to drink correctly.
Quickly, yes.
That's what I need to do.
That's an addict's brain. You try to
Yeah,
figure
it's
out a way to do it where you don't end
where
up
you
hurting people or
exactly,
yourself.
and you're trying really hard to be like, as long as I don't. That's also another thing. It's like comparing things to like someone you know. So like
Mhm.
part of me was like, as long as I don't end up like with wet brain like my dad has,
Mhm.
I'll be all right. As long as I don't go to that level, I'll be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
And
well, you're
that's
trying to compromise with yourself
of
and
course.
give
And
yourself ultimatums. Be like, okay, well, if I do this, then
it's also
this.
I mean, it's also one of those things too where especially with drinking now is that I mean, and I would never ever, and I will never ever, I will never blame my drinking habits on an establishment or an environment.
Yeah,
I would never do that because I've been in places where like you've been surrounded by booze and you're like, you can't drink. You're like, all right, I don't have to. I
yeah,
won't. But like working in bars, working and then doing shows where it like has a
yeah.
bar, or you go anywhere where it's like BYO and you didn't bring anything, but it's all provided for you. It's a
Mhm.
very, I mean, it's a very just like secondary nature.
Yeah.
It's not even like you have to think about it. It's just there. It's
It's just
readily
right
available
there.
and you can have as much as you want. And a lot of the times, if you work in the bar and restaurant industry, and you know a lot of people, and you've been at a lot of bars, you get a lot of shit for free. Like you just,
So much
it's
stuff. And
it.
I notice now I'm getting more stuff for free, even though like I have learned because I'm very similar. Like I keep some alcohol in the house and like I may drink wine, especially during quarantine. It's the only time I ever really drank at home. I never drank at home because I was always worried about becoming a real alcoholic. I'm more of a binge drinker. When I do drink, I'll drink a ridiculous amount, get myself sick, and then not drink for a couple more days. But when I especially starting to do comedy, I have learned to only have well, especially as long as I have if I've gone up already, then I'll drink. But if I haven't gone up, I'll only
Oh,
allow myself to have like two
I
glasses of wine.
I know exactly what you mean, and that's another
Yeah.
thing too. Is that like I mean, having when I first started, I didn't know where the happy medium was. I was like,
Hmm.
maybe I need to be fucking wrecked on stage, or like
Yeah.
maybe I need to like be a little bit half
Yeah.
cocked on stage. Like
Right.
you don't know because you're fucking stupid, and you're also basing it off of like comics you've seen completely
The
fucking
hammered.
wasted.
Yeah.
on stage and somehow miraculously kill it. You're like,
Yeah.
maybe that's what I need to do.
But
It's
they've
just like,
also been doing it for like 30
yeah,
years.
it's like you're like it's like seeing Evil Knievel like jump over helicopters. You're like, all I need is a motorcycle, and I can
I
do
could do
that. I can totally do that.
that.
It's just the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that like the way I would drink, especially, would be influenced by like, I mean, and again, not blaming it on anybody. Like when I would be out, especially if I'm like out with a chick,
Mhm.
if I'm out with like a girlfriend and she's like, I want to get drunk, I'm like, fuck.
Okay.
And it's because, and again, not to sound sexist or anything, and it's not even like me being like, you women can't drink. It's like,
Mhm.
no, no woman that I've ever met that is involved with me can drink the way I drink, and they all try to do that. Like we'll
Um,
be out,
yeah.
I'll get like, bourbon on the rocks, and then they'll get like the same type of thing or like something equivalent to that. And they'll have two of those and be like, kinda. And I'm like, well, I would need 8 of these. It's
Yeah.
like one of these things where it's just like, I'll continue to drink. And by the time I'm even like halfway there, they're already obliterated. I think there's
Mhm.
maybe like 2 women that like I've fraternized with that can like drink as much as I can. And that's 2
And
out
that
of like,
too. You need to hang out in Wisconsin.
I bet the babes out there are just slinging
Yeah.
it.
I used to when I was a stripper. Like you remember the scene in Indiana Jones? I think it's the second one
Oh, Marion
where
Ravenwood?
yeah,
Oh,
where she's
yeah.
yeah, I was that girl in the at the strip club
Yeah,
just
that's awesome.
slamming shoves. But what I would do is that I'd go to the bathroom, throw up whatever I drank, and then
Oh,
come
man.
back and then drink
You know,
more.
it's funny you mentioned that, the throwing up and then being like acting like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I would
again,
purposely throw up. Like I would make myself throw up.
oh,
Yeah, and then go back and drink more. Oh yeah, no, it's a stripper trick because sometimes we get paid for drinks that we sell. So in order to make more money, we need to drink more. So we would just go throw it up. Like
yeah.
true bulimics, like I was an alcoholic bulimic. I don't know if that's a thing.
I know what you mean, but it's also like, again, going back, like, that throwing up made me remember, like, also one of those guys that, like, can never turn down anything, like,
Yeah, it's my
ever.
brain won't let me do it for some reason.
Not at all. Like, there have been I think the longest I ever went without drinking,
Hmm.
like, when I was living in Philadelphia, I think I went, like, 28 days, and I can do it, I just don't think about it.
All right, Sandra Bullock.
But, like, it's like I went 28 days without drinking, and then I
Hmm.
went into a bar just because I walked by because I saw a friend in there, I was like, just to say hello. But as soon as I went into that bar,
You
the
were done.
bartender recognized me and
Hmm.
without me asking, already lined me up with a beer and a shot. And
Yeah,
without thinking about the sobriety,
just did
just
it.
second nature did it. And I was like,
Hmm.
ah, fuck. I was like, well, that's the end of that streak. And I was like,
Hmm.
didn't even think about it. But
Yeah,
like the one time in particular about like anybody not just offering, but like borderline challenging, if
yeah.
that make so I worked at this one bar and like I went there on my day off and I was sitting at the end of the bar talking to the bartender and this guy who I guess had been there for a couple of hours, he's sitting on the other side, like at the corner, and he's like looking at me, he's like, "Hey, what are you drinking over there?" And I was like, "Oh, just bourbon on the rocks." He's like, "Okay." And just like scoffs. I'm like, not thinking of that. And then he's like, I bet I could do. It came down to like, he's like, pick the gnarliest thing and let's do it.
Okay.
And I was like, and I remember now the bartender, we work together,
Yeah.
and this bartender knows me, also knows my drinking habits, and also knows I'm a fucking idiot. So
Yeah.
he's just like looking at me, and I look at him, and what I'm trying to do is get this guy to be like, "Oh, I bit off more than I can chew, and I can see." Like I was like, I want to do something where like he just be like, "Oh no, I don't want to do this."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Let's." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Choose your pick. You pick your poison." Like a
Oh
fucking.
god. I love
I
that
was
line.
like,
Choose
"Okay."
your poison.
And I went. I was like, "Dude." I was like, shot a 151 with a granddad back.
Ooh.
And that's two shots of gross shit.
Oh,
And the guy's like you can see him like, fuck. Like I
yeah.
knew that he didn't want, and he put it down and I was like, you ready? He's like, so what are we doing? I was like, well, we're doing the one shot of 151
Mhm.
and then chasing it with the granddad. And he's like, you can just tell he's like, motherfucker. I was like waiting. I'm like, hey, we can easily that 151. I was like, we can easily dump that out. No one's gonna give a shit. The
Yeah.
granddad people we bummed about, and I'll just take that and put it on rocks. But no one would care about the 151. And he's just like, all right. And then I remember like I was like, one, two, three, and I shot the 151. Now that is a motherfucker.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm banned from drinking that in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
In
that's a
Milwaukee, they
good.
banned me from drinking.
But it's like one of those things where like it sucked, but like you're, you know, making a straight face, like, you done?
Mhm.
And he's like holding it up. He's like doing that thing, like, oh my God. So then I do the shot of granddad, and I can feel like this is here. It is
Yeah.
not down here. All of it's just floating
It
on top
does.
of it.
It sits right here.
It's just sitting right there. And I'm like, And then he puts his shot glass down, and I take his 151 and I do it. And I do the shot of the granddad in front of him. And I just look at him. He's like, all right. Like almost like you win this round, guy.
Random.
Random also had nothing to prove
Yeah,
to
but it's like that
anyone.
high school man. It really is that. Sometimes even now, like guys too, like they'll see me do shots and they'll be like, "Oh, because I'm a woman, like you can't drink that much," and I'm like, "Oh, sweetie,
Yeah. So then I bummed a smoke
yeah,
from the bartender, and I like
yeah."
you when you do something like that, you got to hold it a little bit just to show them that you're not about to lose it. And then because I was,
Yeah, of course.
and I was like, I was like, hey, can I have a smoke? And he's like, oh, he gave me a cigarette, and I took a pack of matches. And I went out front, but like I went around the corner to like smoke the cigarette, and then as soon as I got out of the side of the window, I quickly walked, almost ran around the back where the alleyway was, and I threw up all of that booze just straight into the
Yeah,
gutter. And then
good
I
place
like,
for it. Good place
and
for
I
it.
just waited and waited, and I dry heaved again. I was like, oh my good. It wasn't even dead. It was just sitting there waiting to come
To
back up.
come up,
And it was
yeah.
just straight booze. And it's like, that should have taught you like what is going on with you. And again, it's like,
But
you're,
you grew up around alcohol,
yeah,
like drinking, and so it's just like this is just what you do.
yeah. And it's also, again, it's like with, I don't know where the psychological thing of never being able to say, like not being able to be like, nah, I don't
Yeah,
want to do that. I mean, now I think I've gotten better, but like I look back on like my late 20s and early 30s, and I was not good
yeah.
with that at all.
I think your body kind of tells you because, like now,
Oh yeah,
well, when I try to drink like how I used to drink, especially when I lived in Wisconsin, just being a couple of years younger, like I will be hungover for a week. Like I could still drink, but I will get sick. And
I-
like I never used to get that sick. I was like, what the fuck? And yeah, age basically
but
happened.
I that's funny you said, like I think the one thing that's always, I mean, I've been hungover before. I've been violently
Yeah,
hungover, but I rarely ever do. And I mean, like I could put away a bottle
yeah,
and wake up the next morning and be like, "Ooh, I need a glass of water." But like
yeah.
someone who's with me is like, "How are you even functioning right
I
now?"
miss being able to be like that. I'm definitely
I think that's more
uh,
detrimental. I think
yeah,
that's more like
no. Well,
you're not
because you
having enough
yeah,
to like stop you.
yeah.
It's crazy. And I mean, even things that again, like when it goes back, I look at like things I've done and like I don't understand why I just still continued to drink the way I did. And it was like I would talk to people like that should have been enough to make anybody stop. Or like something you went through that was so disgusting.
Mhm.
Like one again, with not being able to turn anything down. Uh this one guy I worked with, we would do this thing where if we were working the same day, we would stop at a bar beforehand and order like a half like glass of cider and then like a shot of like a big old shot of Bushmills, which was
Yeah.
super. So like whatever, but I remember that day we were working together, and I had overdone it the night before, and I wasn't feeling very fucking good, and
Mhm.
I didn't want any booze. And I remember being like, I have to get to work before he does so I
Mhm.
can just buy his thing and just lie about how I did it. And just everyone's just playing the game, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, I get there. He's already clocked in. I'm like, motherfucker. He's like, you're set up back at the bar. I'm like,
Thing.
fuck. So I went and I could have just been like, hey, can you just give this to somebody else? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want this. But I didn't. And I was like, just sack up, you piece of shit. Like, you can drink that cider, no problem. And I remember, like an idiot, I drank the cider first. I should have just saved that. But I drank the cider first, and then I put like, I smelled the Bushmills, and I immediately was like, oh, I'm gonna regret this.
Mhm.
And then I did it, and I like dry heaved kind of, but like it came up into my like
Oh, the
nostrils.
nose, yeah.
So then I was like trying to like choke it back, and then realized I couldn't like inhale through my nostrils, and I could only breathe through my mouth.
Mhm.
And like at one point in time, I like found it hard to swallow. And I was like, what is going on? And I got real lightheaded and I lost like equilibrium a little bit. And I put down the money and I started walking back and I was like, what is, I feel fucked up.
Mhm.
And I clock into work and I'm like moving super slow. And I remember thinking, like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, I still couldn't breathe through my nose. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What is going on? And I worked like that for like 10 minutes, like just in and out of it. I went in the bathroom, tried to make myself throw up. I thought that was going to work.
Yeah.
Nothing. I tried blowing my nose. Nothing. I go down in the basement and I'm like folding rags. And then I drop a few and I bend down. And as I do that, I can hear like, glug, 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 glug.
So it's, like,
and,
stuck in your nasal
and
cavity.
yeah, I feel my not like I'm like, oh. And then as I stand up, I'm like, fucking Christ, I feel
It
on the
goes
side of my neck what I thought was sweat. And then I took a rag and realized that I had expelled Bushmills whiskey from out of both of my ears.
and you didn't think that was a sign
And
that maybe you shouldn't
that
should drink?
should have been a thing
Yeah.
where like people are like, you know what you need to do? Dial it back. But more in my head, I was like, you know what I need to do? I just need to take like 4 hours off and work back into it very slowly. Actually, I need a shot right now just to like process what I did. I think that's just a crazy thing that I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's just the way your brain works,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Addicts' brains, alcoholics' brains, like they don't stop. And
it's it,
even though they consciously know that they should, they don't. Like people who are sober, and with anything really, like they have to make a conscious effort to not do these things
yeah.
because it's so ingrained in our brain to go and do them. Like I tried to be a vegetarian for a while. I was trying really hard, or pescatarian or whatever, where I eat only fish.
Yeah,
My,
yeah. The
my
fish one.
yeah, the fish one. I always say Presbyterian, which is not.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that like a religion?
It's a religion. But we went, the guy I was seeing at the time, he went to a steakhouse. They had this great like tuna steak. I'm like, perfect. Without even thinking about it, I ordered a filet mignon, which is what I would normally order, and just ate it. And then after dinner, my boyfriend at the time, he's like, so I guess you're not doing the whole vegetarian thing, huh? And I was like, oh,
Oh.
I didn't even realize that I fucking just like my body
Yeah.
needed, well, with that, like my body needed the iron. But the same thing with drinking. Like I'll go out, like have one show. I'm like, I'm just gonna go do this one spot, come back. Next thing I'm like, had one glass of wine and then didn't want it, but had it. And then yeah, 3 bottles later.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's an addict's brain. So we're gonna wrap up here. It was very fun talking with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We have a lot of you have a lot of stories.
I think the only other thing I will say at the end is that
Yeah.
like another thing that is very dangerous for somebody who drinks a lot
Yeah,
is
well, what advice would you give to,
I
like,
would say
younger people?
don't what advice would I say to
Yeah.
younger people is honestly try and like I know it sounds so cliche, know your limit.
Yeah.
Know where you can I know a lot of people drink just to feel fine, but I know like one thing I used to do when I was like starting out, I would like if my face started feeling numb, I knew right then and there I'm like I need to stop. Like if
Yeah.
I can just like kind of smack my face and be like, "Oh, I'm pretty fucked up." I was like, "You should stop." But part of me was also like, "Let's see if I don't need to stop."
Yeah.
Uh Another thing I can say is again, cliche as fuck, but it does work. For every beer or shot that you have, drink water. For every beer or shot that you have,
Drink a glass of
drink
water.
some fucking water.
It
It
helps
is
so much.
crazy. And I know it sounds like this is textbook shit, but like
It
you
is in a textbook for a fucking
yeah,
reason.
but you hear it and you're like, that is the gayest thing I'm ever gonna do. I'm never doing any of that.
Do
And then
it.
you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, did you pee and it was bright yellow and stunk really bad and you forget everything? You
Mhm.
should have drank some more water. That's
Mhm.
I don't know. I would also say never get the moment you trust your blackout self. That's the moment you need to reconsider how you drink. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, I don't know what it is about blackout me, but I'm confident in two things.
Mhm.
Blackout me
Mhm.
will always get home.
Yep.
Always.
Always
There
get
is
home.
never a time where I have been blacked out and then woken up like or not like if I woke up in a strange place, I'm either like on someone's couch or like inside
Yeah.
somewhere. I've never woken up like on the street or like on a like somewhere unless I'm
Yeah.
like at my buddy's house. But like I've drank to excess in this city to a point where like I can tell you the last like oh, I remember the last drink I had at a place.
Mhm.
But then I'll magically wake up on my bed with all of my belongings.
Mhm.
And it's just like, you worry. You're like, oh man, what did I do? And then like you text somebody and you're like, oh yeah, you were fine.
You were fine. Yeah. People are like, "Oh, you didn't even seem that drunk." I was like, "I woke up on my bathroom floor naked with my front door open and
Yeah.
my car parked sideways." I'm like,
It,
"Not fine."
yeah. I think that's it. When you, the moment you start being like, I can do whatever. I'm not worried about
Blackout me is
yeah,
fucking
I'm not worried
A-okay.
about blackout me. One, he's personable, maybe get a little loud, but he'll always get where he needs to be,
Mhm.
and he's like doesn't want to go to jail. I don't know,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
yeah, don't get comfortable with blackout you.
Yeah,
That's
blackout, it's your shadow self. I mean, you
yeah,
gotta get to know it, but don't become friends with
yeah. Don't become friends with that person.
it.
Don't be broing out with that guy. He's
Yeah, no matter
the
what your
worst.
friends say.
Yeah, no matter what, no matter what.
Well, thanks
That's
for coming on.
thank you.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at underscore Shaner underscore comedy underscore. You can find me on Instagram, Shaner Comedy, ShanerCobbedy. And you can find me on the You Fucked It podcast at YFI Podcast on Twitter. And we're all over iTunes, Stitcher, whatever streaming app you got. So check it out, please.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You can find this show, How to Do Drugs, on all of those also same channels, although technically it hasn't been released yet, but you will be able to find them there. You can find it
Fantastic.
on Twitter at How to Do Drugs and Instagram, How to Do Drugs Pod. I'm your host, Alia Janine. Let's stop recording.